For years, data privacy has been this huge topic of debate in India. Well, guess what? That debate is pretty much over because a new law is finally here. Today, we're going to break down exactly what this new Digital Personal Data Protection Act is, and more importantly, what it means for you. So here's the big headline. India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act, or the DPDP Act for short, is now official. And this is a really big deal. It's a landmark moment for every citizen's privacy, setting a whole new set of rules for our digital lives. So, at its core, what is this thing? Well, you can think of it as a brand new rulebook for any company or organization that collects or uses your digital data. Its main job? To make sure companies are actually protecting your information, and to hit them with some serious penalties if they mess up. Now, this law didn't just appear out of thin air. Nope. It's the direct result of a historic Supreme Court ruling back in 2017, the KS Puttaswamy case, which officially established that privacy is a fundamental right for every single Indian citizen. This act is that ruling put into action. Okay, so the law exists, but what does it actually do? Let's get into the specifics of the new rules for companies and, just as important, the new rights that it gives to you. The Act basically sets up two main players in this whole game. On one side, you have the data principals. That's you, me, basically anyone whose data is being collected. And on the other side, you've got the data fiduciaries. Just think of them as the companies and organizations that are holding and using our information. For those companies, the data fiduciaries, things are about to get a lot stricter. They are now legally on the hook to protect your data. That means they have to appoint a specific data protection officer to make sure they're following the rules, and they're going to face some hefty penalties for any breaches. Oh, and they also have to report any security problems on a really tight deadline. Now, on the other side of the coin, we've got your new rights as a data principal. You can now formally ask a company to fix incorrect information they have on you, or even to just delete your data entirely. The Act also brings in this really interesting idea of consent managers, which are basically services that can manage all your data permissions across different apps and websites for you. This all sounds pretty good, right? But it's not going to happen overnight. The government has planned a gradual rollout, so let's take a quick look at the timeline. So the Act was passed back in August of 2023, but companies have until November 2026 to get some of the key things in place, like hiring those data protection officers. That's also when we'll start to see that consent manager system take shape. By May 2027, the law is expected to be in full swing, especially for the big tech companies. And to make sure all of this actually happens, the Act is setting up a new authority, the Data Protection Board of India. You can think of this board as the referee. They're the ones who will handle complaints, investigate data breaches, and slap penalties on companies that don't play by the new rules. But, like any huge piece of legislation, this act isn't without its critics. While a lot of people are celebrating it, there are some really significant criticisms that we need to talk about. The tech industry, for example, has a bit of a mixed reaction. Groups like NASSCOM are saying, hey, we like the general idea, but they're also worried about some of the really specific details, like those super tight rules for getting parental consent and the short deadlines for reporting breaches we just talked about. On the other hand, you've got digital rights groups like the Internet Freedom Foundation, and they're sounding a much bigger alarm. Their argument is that while the law puts rules on companies, it also gives government agencies huge powers to collect our personal data with very little oversight, basically tightening state control. And that brings us to the absolute heart of the controversy. The law basically gives the government a free pass. It carves out these huge exemptions for the state and its instrumentalities. What that means is the government doesn't have to follow the same data protection rules that every private company does. And that's a really big deal. This has a direct knock-on effect on another super important law, the Right to Information Act, or RTI. Activists are really worried because this new data law actually weakens the RTI. It could allow government bodies to refuse to share personal information about public officials, which would make it way harder to hold them accountable. So, after all that, what's the bottom line? What are the key things you really need to take away from all this? All right, if you remember just 3 things, make it these. First, your personal data finally has a legal shield to protect it from being misused by companies. Second, those companies now have to follow strict new rules and they face real penalties. And third, a huge debate is just getting started about whether the government has given itself too much power. Which leaves us with the one big question hanging over everything. Is this the dawn of a new era for data privacy in India, one that really empowers citizens? Or, with all those government exemptions, could it actually become a powerful new tool for state control? I guess only time will tell.